think Katie's absolutely spot on. I mean, Charles wants this to work, and it is a slight test. They're baby steps. You know, he only met Harry for 50 minutes or so, so we're told. Um, you know, that's not long. It's not like Harry came and stayed for a few days and they chewed the fat over a glass of nice Scottish whiskey. You know, that wasn't the case. With William, well, it's going to take more because there's damage there. William has had to suffer the fact that Harry has directly criticised and made accusations towards his wife. And as we've seen, William, above all, is protective of his family. That's sort of number one for William. So I think, you know, with Harry, it's good. 50 minutes with Prince William to say sorry or not. You know, does Harry even feel sorry? I'm not sure that he does. But it's going to take a long time, and it's going to take a lot more meetings between King Charles and Harry before there's any chance of Harry burying the hatchet, if you like, with his brother. And yeah, to answer your question, I find it terribly sad. Those two were thick as thieves. I used to really enjoy the fact that they'd bounce off each other, and if they did a joint engagement, it was fun. You know, they actually took the mickey out of each other. They put each other down, but in a nice way, in an endearing way. I remember watching them play football in South Africa, and Harry was taking the mickey out of his brother for not being very good. Well, his brother had just been made the head of the FA, the Football Association. You know, it's fun, but it just makes it more sad, I think, now that we're in this situation with the brothers.
Katie, you also write in Vanity Fair, you're recapping that super sweet Eugene Levy interview on The Reluctant Traveler. Um, Prince William does bring up Prince Harry. It's a very subtle mention, but he also talks about 2024 being the hardest year of his life. As someone that has covered the royals as long as you have, are you at all taken aback by that, thinking about the death of Princess Diana, too, that 2024 would be the hardest year of his life, having witnessed him walking behind that coffin and knowing that he experienced something so horrible as a teenager?
Well, I mean, look, he's hinted at how awful that year has been. I mean, he described it when he was recently in South Africa to reporters there as a brutal year. I mean, I watched that interview and I was really moved by it. I thought this was William, at his most candid, at his most open, making himself very vulnerable, actually, but in doing so, really connecting with people. And I think, if anyone sort of had any questions about what sort of a king he's going to be one day, they are quite succinctly answered when you've watched that interview. This is a man who has empathy and compassion, who is a family man above all, but also understands what duty involves for him. And I was fascinated by so much of what he said in terms of how he's raising his young children away from screens and the great outdoors with plenty of sport, how hands-on they are as parents. I mean, things that I've known and have reported on over the years, but it's another thing to hear it directly from him. But also, Kinsey, what I found so fascinating about that interview was him talking about the future and, talking about that prospect of him being king one day and George being king one day. A question that Eugene asked him, which was a big, bold question to ask William. I thought, Eugene did a brilliant job at that interview. And he got great answers out of William, and that idea of change being so important to the royal family, not radical change, but change. And I think, when you consider it's been such an awful year, a year where his father has gotten sick, his wife has gotten sick. I mean, that man has faced so much uncertainty. It doesn't matter who he is. He's a human who's faced, real pain and trauma for a second time in his life. I think to have the incredible sense of perspective and optimism that he has really makes him stand out. And I think he came across absolutely brilliantly. And as I said, I was really quite moved by it, and I think many people were.
Yeah, he does. He focuses on the positive, which is really refreshing
Absolutely.
to see. Katie, you have kids. Is it
Yes.
going to be sustainable? Because I love the idea of no screens. I love the idea of no screens. But then I'm like, are they going to feel left out that they don't?
Well, they get iPads and things at school, obviously, because it's part of the learning curriculum. But I think, when it comes to, having their own smartphones and social media and everything, it's not just Harry and Meghan who are campaigning for safer online measures for children. William and Kate are very active in that. And I think they kind of have to lead by example, and they've made that decision that screens are not going to be a big part of their children's lives. Is it is it possible to do that? Yes, I'm very strict with my children and their screen time. I mean, I am, and I think there's a lot to be said for that, and so much to be said for enjoying sport and being outdoors and having that family time together, because that's priceless.
Absolutely. You're right. I mean, they do have plenty of land. Like there's plenty to do on the property. I can't remember what then whatever was falling from the tree that Prince Louis was collecting and they were fighting hidden around the house. So yes, you're right. They have plenty of things to do. I'm over here in California where we're all like stacked on top of each other. Duncan, did you see that interview and what was your reaction? Prince William has really grown into this very confident and assertive young man.
I thought it was a good interview, and it showed the side of William um, that we can all relate to. He is a father first and a future king second. I think he's going to be a really good king because I think he's really putting thought into and planning into. I mean, years ago, we I remember with William, way back in 2005, when we'd just been to a war memorial and we had a drink with William and a couple others in the press pack, and said, why do you want to join the military? As he did, he had his stint in the military. He said, it's because I'm going to be meeting veterans my whole life, and I want to be able to look them in the eye and have some kind of credibility. So the amount of planning and forethought that William's putting into his life to approach his destiny, I think is to his credit, actually. And the fact that he doesn't put that above his family is even better. Like Katie says, the worst year of his life. Well, what about the year your mother died? He cares about the people around him. He cares about his father. He cares about his wife, and he cares about his kids. And that can only surely be a good thing.
Katie, I'm sorry to throw this question at you, and this is our last question, but I don't feel like Duncan's going to vibe with it, although it's off what Duncan said.
Yes.
I just watched an interview with Taylor Swift, and she's reacting to all the negativity around her new album. And I loved something she said because I wasn't the biggest fan of the new album. It's okay. But I love this thing she said. She's like, everything I do is about legacy. I'm very thoughtful that everything I do, there's a bigger picture, there's a bigger objective. And as I watched that, I thought of Prince William because I felt like this Eugene Levy interview was something, was about legacy. He's planting these little seeds and we're going to reference it 20 years from now. And none of us have any idea where we're just rotting on our couches watching The Reluctant Traveler, that he's implanting these ideas in our heads. Do you get that sense? And Duncan just said it, like Prince William really is so thoughtful when it comes to the overall legacy. And don't be mad at me for asking this question, but do you get the sense sometimes that Harry and Meghan are about the right now instead of about the legacy that we see Prince William fixating on?
Well, I completely agree with Duncan that William is so much about the long-term vision and the future. And you use that word legacy. And actually, it's funny you mentioned Taylor Swift because for some reason, on my way to this interview, I was thinking about Taylor Swift and William and Bon Jovi singing at Kensington Palace at a charity gala dinner that I was at. I'm thinking, gosh, there are some things I never thought I'd see in my life, and that was definitely one of them. And William is a big Taylor fan, and I'm sure, whatever Prince George listens to his music on, even if it's not an iPhone, there's some Spotify account or something somewhere in that house belting out not just AC/DC because we know they like that, but Taylor too. But I think, when it comes to legacy, that is what William is about. And he believes in the monarchy. He believes in its future. He believes it has a future. He does not want it fading out when his reign comes to an end. He wants to future-proof it, and that is what it's all about. And I think to have seen him let his guard down the way he did, to have some understanding of what that bigger picture looks like, I think sort of makes everyone a little bit curious to see what's going to come next. And not just curious, but also quite assured that actually the monarchy is in really, really safe hands.
Okay. Katie was nice and ditched my final question, Duncan. So I'm going to toss it back to you. Do Harry and Meghan think about legacy as much as Prince William does, or do you think they're all about the right now?
Oh, thank you, Kinsey. That's so kind of you. Um, do you know what? When you said that, I thought, my goodness me, she's right. I mean, that is it. What is Meghan and Harry's plan? What are they trying to actually do? And where are they going to be in 5 years? Where are they going to be in 10 years? It does seem very instant gratification. But that's being really critical of them. And I
You would
think
never. You would never
uh,
be that critical of them.
no, look, I like Prince Harry. Okay, I lay my cards on the table. I think he's a great guy. I can't say the same about Meghan, but that's only because of what we see and hear. But I think William, like Katie's outlined, this desire for progression, the monarchy having a safe future. I think William gets that from the memory of his grandmother, with the Queen. I think he's been heavily influenced by her, whereas Harry's a bit more of a rebel, doesn't see the merit in having a royal family and wishes he wasn't part of it. But at the same time, will then go and take award ceremonies in New York. So it's a very confused message from Harry and Meghan. And yeah, I'll answer it straight. I don't think they have a long-term plan whatsoever.
Katie,
I
did you
think
have?
also just to close on Duncan's point about whether or not they have a long-term plan, I think in many ways it almost works to the royal family's advantage that Harry and Meghan have set up this rival court in Montecito, that it is not focusing on legacy and long-term future in the same way that is the role of the royals, because otherwise then you do have potential conflict and that could cause real problems. So in many ways, and I agree with Duncan too in terms of how sad that rift makes me. It doesn't give me any pleasure to see these two brothers fall out. Actually, that division between them in terms of that polarizing in terms of what they're doing is actually not such a bad thing when you think about it for the royal family.
Ooh, Katie, what a great point to end on. All right, agree with us, disagree with us. Let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. Duncan, Larcombe, thank you so much for thanks for taking the tough questions. I know you don't like it all the time, so thank you. And
My pleasure.
Katie, Vanity Fair, I read you religiously. Thank you so much for all of your insight and your great and sharing your great scoops with us. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.